5 years ago, Bandai Namco took a franchise that had been quietly fading into irrelevance and turned it into one of the best-selling Tales games of all time. And in 2026, it's still not done. A brand new Switch 2 port just landed a few months ago, bundling the entire story expansion for the first time on one cartridge. So the question isn't, was Tales of Arise good in 2021? Everyone already knows the answer to that. The real question is, does it still hold up today? In a year where we've got Clair Obscur, Metaphor, and half a dozen other JRPGs raising the bar? I just replayed the whole thing front to back, DLC included, specifically to answer that. Let's get into it.
For anyone who somehow missed it, Tales of Arise is an action RPG from Bandai Namco Studios, directed by Hirokazu Kagawa. It released in September 2021 after getting delayed a full year so the team could actually polish it properly, and that decision paid off. It won Best RPG at the Game Awards that year, beating out some genuinely stacked competition, and it went on to sell over 3 million copies within a couple of years, making it the fastest-selling entry the series has ever had. It's also had a long tail most games never get, a story DLC called Beyond the Dawn in 2023, and now a full Switch 2 edition in May 2026 that packages both together as the Beyond the Dawn edition. So we're not just reviewing a 5-year-old game today, we're reviewing something that's still actively being sold and played right now. Here's the setup. 2 planets, Dana and Reyna, got fused together 300 years ago. Reyna sits up in the sky, worshipped almost like a divine land, while Dana, down below, has spent 3 centuries getting stripped of its resources and its people treated as slaves under Renan lords. You play as a masked amnesiac who can't feel physical pain, going by the name Iron Mask at first, and later as Alphen once his memories start coming back. Early on, he crosses paths with Xion, a Renan noblewoman cursed so that anyone who touches her gets hurt, and the two of them team up to take down the 5 Renan lords ruling over Dana. What makes this story land differently than a lot of Tales games is the tone. This isn't the usual quirky anime adventure with comic relief every 5 minutes. It opens with slavery, torture, and systemic abuse on screen, and it doesn't really soften that. It's the most grounded, almost Western-leaning story the series has told, and it earns that seriousness because the stakes actually feel like stakes. The back half does get messier. There's a twist involving the true nature of Reyna and Dana's history that some fans still argue is either the game's smartest idea or its most overstuffed one. But even at its most chaotic, it never stops being about people trying to build something new after tearing down something broken. That theme, what do you do with freedom once you actually have it, is still the backbone of the story. And honestly, it's aged well. It doesn't feel dated at all going into 2026. If you want the full experience, the Beyond the Dawn DLC picks up a year after the ending and deals with the fallout of Dana and Reyna literally merging into one world. It's not essential, but it's a genuinely well-written epilogue if you finish the base game and want closure. The cast is where Arise quietly does some of its best work. Alphen is your protagonist, and instead of being the usual blank slate hero, his entire arc is about rediscovering who he was and reckoning with what that person actually did. Xion carries a ton of the emotional weight early on, since her curse is basically a physical metaphor for the isolation trauma creates. Then you've got Law, a young Danan mercenary running from his own father's shadow. Rinwell, a mage hunted for practicing magic that's been outlawed. Kisara, a former royal guard trying to figure out what she's actually fighting for now that the throne she served betrayed her. And Dohalim, who joins later and ends up being one of the more surprisingly complex characters in the whole roster. None of these 6 have known each other for years going in. That's actually a deliberate choice. You watch these relationships form in real time instead of picking up a group that's already close. And for the first stretch of the game, that can feel a little distant. But by the midpoint, once they've been through enough fights and enough late-night camp conversations together, it clicks. The skits, Tales' signature little side conversations you can trigger between characters, do a lot of heavy lifting here, and there are genuinely dozens of hours of them if you go out of your way to watch them all.
This is the part of Tales of Arise that nobody argues about. The combat is the best the series has ever put out. It ditched the more menu-heavy, semi-turn-based feel of older Tales games and went full real-time action. You've got an Artes gauge that lets you chain ground and aerial combos freely, and once you fill up a boost gauge, you can trigger boost attacks, unique moves tied to whichever party member you're paired with. Law can shatter an enemy's guard wide open. Rinwell can literally steal a spell an enemy's casting and throw it right back at them. Kisara can slam her shield down to protect the whole party and set up a follow-up hit. Every character's boost attack changes how you approach a fight, and that variety keeps combat from ever going stale across a 40-plus hour campaign. Then there's boost strikes, which are essentially cinematic finishing moves you can pull off once an enemy's health gets low enough, and over limit, a temporary state you build up through perfect dodges that gives you unlimited artes and access to devastating mystic artes. Stack all of that together and you get combat that rewards actually paying attention to positioning and timing instead of just mashing one button, but never punishes you so hard that it stops being fun. You can switch which character you're directly controlling mid-fight too, and the AI controlling your other 3 party members is smart enough that you're never carrying dead weight. Outside of combat, the game leans into a semi-open structure. You've got hub-style regions connected by more linear zones, side quests that range from simple fetch tasks to genuinely well-written character moments, a cooking system that buffs your party between fights, and a crafting system for gear upgrades. It's not Elden Ring levels of open, and it's not trying to be. It knows exactly what kind of game it is, and it doesn't waste your time padding things out with busy work you don't actually want to do.
Visually, this is still one of the best-looking anime RPGs ever made, and that's not an exaggeration. Bandai Namco moved off the aging engine older Tales games ran on and rebuilt Arise in Unreal Engine 4, and the difference is night and day. The whole game looks like a painting brought to life. Thick outlines, flat cel-shaded lighting, and vibrant color palettes that make every region feel distinct, whether you're in a scorched desert, a snow-covered kingdom, or a lush forest realm. It genuinely looks like someone took an anime and figured out how to let you walk around inside it. And 5 years later, that art style has aged so much better than a straight photorealistic approach would have. Photorealism ages fast, stylization doesn't. Now, on the technical side, it's worth being honest. The new Switch 2 version locks the game at 30 frames per second, which some players are going to be disappointed by given the hardware, though the trade-off is that it still looks sharp and stable on the go. On PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC, you're getting a much smoother, higher frame rate experience. And honestly, that's still the best way to play this game if you have the choice. Either way, artistically, nothing about this game looks like a 2021 title. It looks timeless, and that's the whole point of choosing a style over raw horseware.
So here's the actual verdict. Going back into this game in 2026, after everything that's come out since, Metaphor, ReFantazio, Clair Obscure, Expedition 33, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Tales of Arise still stands on its own. The combat hasn't been outclassed. If anything, it's still one of the smoothest action RPG systems on the market, and a lot of newer games are clearly borrowing ideas from what Arise did first. The story's themes around colonialism, class, and rebuilding after liberation haven't gotten any less relevant either. If anything, they hit a little harder now than they did in 2021. Where it shows its age a little is pacing. The back third of the story throws a lot at you fast after a slower build-up, and if you're coming from more recent JRPGs with tighter, more modern structuring, that unevenness might stand out. The side content, while good, is also a lot more traditional than what some 2026 releases are doing with open-world design. But none of that stops this from being one of the most complete, satisfying action RPGs you can play right now, whether you're picking it up for the first time on Switch 2 or replaying it on PS5 5 years later like I just did. If you've never played a Tales game before, this is still the single best entry point into the entire franchise. And if you already played it back in 2021, the Beyond the Dawn DLC genuinely earns a replay, especially now that it's bundled in one clean package instead of being a separate purchase.